Do you make impulsive decisions like buying expensive items and then live to regret it? Speak before you think at family gatherings? Avoid making decisions because you assume they'll be bad ones? Well, we'll tell you how you can master your impulses right now on It's Your Call. Hi there, everyone. It's good to have you with us. I'm Lynn Doyle. Our topic today stems from a new workbook called Decision Pulse, How to Succeed in the Age of Uncertainty. In it, the author addresses human behavior, tells us why we make the decisions we do or don't, and rates us as either being impulsive or not. Meet Nick Tassler, who is a human behaviorist and a best-selling author. His first book was called The Impulse Factor, an Innovative Approach to Decision-Making. And he's here to tell us how we can make better decisions. Always a good tool to have in the toolbox, Nick.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I love the idea of being a human behaviorist. What exactly is that?
Well, in a nutshell, it means I watch people. My background is organizational psychology, but really what I do is I take a look at what kind of patterns people are using and applying to their behavior and what's working and what's not, and what can we do about it?
Boy, what a tough job you have. You got to people watch all day long.
That's right. I spend a lot of time in airports and shopping malls.
So what would you say generally is your impression of people when it comes to decision making? Are we very comfortable with making decisions, or do we kind of shy away from them more so than not?
Well, there's definitely two different kinds of people, but if we were to make one generalization, I would say we shy away from them, and that actually is a problem that's gotten worse in the last decade or so.
Why do we shy away from problems?
Well,
and I say problems because I'm thinking when there's a decision to be made, it's because there's a problem to be had.
Right.
Is that an assumption?
Yeah, well, fortunately there are some decisions where, we just make them and it is a good thing, but a lot of times it is a problem, and we shy away from it because we're so afraid of making the wrong decision that we make no decision at all. And so there's this fear element that really prevents us from making the choices we need.
So why is that? Is it because we have already made bad decisions in our past that we're living with, or we just don't want the anticipated fallout that comes from a bad decision?
Yeah, well, you said the key word there, anticipated.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So there's two kinds of regret. There's regret that we feel after we've made a decision. We did something that was kind of boneheaded, we wish we hadn't. But there's also what's called anticipatory regret, which means even before we make it, we can still feel like we're going to be doing something boneheaded, and so we anticipate the regret.
Okay, so as we are moving toward 2012, as a society, you think that people are more bogged down in decision making because there are more decisions to make than perhaps previously?
Yeah, there's a few different elements. There are more decisions to make. Because we live in such a free society, we get to choose everything from what socks to wear to what job, what relationships, etc. But there's also a lot more information out there to inform these decisions, and that is really what bogs us down.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that, because in your books you talk about information overload. It's almost like we have too much at our fingertips, where before we might have used instinct or anecdotal behavior to help us make a decision. Now it's just like there's so much information that we almost don't know what to do with it all.
Yeah, that's exactly right. With the internet and everything else that we have out there that gives us information at our fingertips, the notion, the belief is that there's no excuse for ever making the wrong decision because we have so much information at our disposal. And so this anticipatory regret is just like through the roof.
Okay, but we still have to make decisions.
That's right.
And you said that there are two different kinds of decision makers. One who try to stay away from it, but then are there other people who welcome the decision, who have kind of mastered that process?
Sure, there's two different kinds of decision maker, and one is what we call risk managers. And a lot of times those types of people are they can be decisive, but a lot of times they're so afraid that they're going to expose themselves to risk that they don't make any decision.
Okay.
And then there's another kind that's a little bit more impulsive, and we call that group potential seekers. And they are more prone to making decisions. Now, they're not always good decisions, but they will make more decisions.
All right. We called this show Mastering Your Impulses, not mastering your decisions.
Mm-hmm.
What role does being impulsive play in making decisions in your life?
Sure. Well, we're somewhere, everyone is somewhere on this continuum of more or less impulsive. But all of us have impulses. It's part of human nature. And so the role that it plays is some of us trust our impulses and act on them more often than others. Now, they can be our best friend, but they can also be our worst enemy.
Okay, on that note, we're going to invite our viewers to tell us about themselves. What about you? Are you an impulsive person prone to making decisions before you've given the subject a lot of thought? Or do you stew on things for a very long time and even then find yourself being indecisive? And what about speaking before you think? Are you guilty of that? Has it gotten you in hot water? I'd love for you to share some ideas with us, how you've gotten in trouble or how you've stayed out of trouble and how you make your decisions. Do you think on it a whole lot or do you just go with your gut? Tell me what you think. Email me at lynn@lynndoyle.net. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. We're going to share some of our comments that we're getting from our viewers throughout the show. And we have a quiz for you as well. In your book, you actually give some potential quiz questions to the readers, and we're going to share some of that with our viewers as well. But how about me? Would you give me the quiz?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm
so I'm asking a few questions.
Okay,
right,
let's just do one at a time.
Let's start out with, tell me, Lynn, are you at your best when you have to make a quick decision or when you have time to think through all your options?
When I have to make a quick decision. How's that?
That was very quick.
That was very
quick.
You know, I think that's because I've had a career for more than 30 years in live television. And on live television, you can't really sit and ponder what you might do. You have to kind of act and then, you know, and then deal with it. So I think that's translated into my personal life just a little bit. Yeah. And doesn't mean that sometimes I don't make a decision and say, wait a minute, now that I've had time to think about it, I'd like to do that a little differently. But for the most part, I'm pretty comfortable going on the fly.
Sure, and I think you really tapped into two things there. And one is your experience with live TV, which sort of forces you to do, as you say, make quick decisions. But the other thing is just experience in general. In areas of our life when we have a lot of experience and we're very comfortable, we're more confident. And so we tend to trust our impulses more frequently.
Now, you talk about trusting your impulses. That leads me to ask the question about woman's intuition or mother's instinct. Do you think those kinds of things exist?
Yeah, I absolutely do. And of course, we all have intuition. And I think, I don't know whether it's social, sort of social conditioning or not, but I do think that women are sometimes more prone to listening to their intuition. We do know from a lot of studies that women tend to be a little bit more emotionally intelligent, which means they're at least listening.
A little bit more?
I want to be politically
Seriously,
correct.
folks?
Yeah.
Oh, I think you can say a little bit more than a little bit more.
Would your husband agree?
Absolutely. My husband always agrees with me. That's why we've been happily married all these years. We're going to ask you some of these quiz questions as well. I'm going to put that one out to you right now. What about you? Do you make decisions on the spur of the moment, or do you kind of chew on something for a very, very long time? Do you want to tell us what you think? Go ahead and email me during the break if you have some questions or comments about your behavior, particularly when it comes to being around your family at those holiday gatherings or any time that there's going to be a, you know, a family event. If you want to avoid some bad decision making, we're going to tell you how you can do that as well. Stay with us. Master your impulses on the other side.